Hello, citizens. I am Phineas Hook, and today I'm going to be talking to you about some of my favorite classic games. I'm going to be recording this video on my way home from work. It's the best setup that I have right now. It's the only time I really have to record. Hopefully that'll change in the very near future, but for right now, while driving home is my best time to record. For these first few videos, I've decided to review some of the older games. A lot of them are favorite old games like Commander Keen and Duke Nukem, DOS games that we all know and love. A fewer number of retro gamers are aware of the Commodore Amiga system. Sadly, they don't make them anymore. And really, they were ahead of their time. A lot of games that came out on the Amiga also came out on other systems. Some of them made it to console. Others were just available in DOS format. I got the opportunity to play many of them on the Amiga and then also on DOS or on console. The Amiga version was always so much better. I grew up playing a Commodore Amiga. My brother and I recently salvaged that old computer from our parents' house, and we've been trying to get it working again, and we finally got it working, and I'm going to be reviewing some of my favorite games for the Commodore Amiga. When I think of playing some of those old games on the Amiga, one that really comes to mind, one that really floats to the forefront of my memory, is a game called Lords of War. Now, there have been many games called Lords of War since that game. I believe there's a World of Warcraft expansion called Lords of War. There's a mobile game called Lords of War. But the Commodore Amiga Lords of War is one of the best sports games, I guess I would call it. With a name like Lords of War, you wouldn't think that it was any kind of sport game. The only sport I could really compare it to, though, is like tennis with 4 players. You play as a knight, and instead of having a racket, you have a shield. And instead of a tennis ball, you're batting a skull back and forth. Each of the 4 players is defending a castle. And if the skull hits your castle, it'll make a hole. Well, it'll damage it. If it damages it enough, in the same spot, it'll make a hole. And if the skull breaks through the wall and touches the emblem in the middle of your castle, you're out of the game. Fun game for that simple concept, but it does get more complicated. As you rack up more points with the damage that you do to the other player's castles, you earn power that you can spend on spells. And some of those spells are just wicked brutal. Freezing other players so they can't defend their castle, slowing them to an agonizing crawl. Then you get into the really dirty spells like just completely all-out destroying a castle with a single spell. It could have had perfect health before you cast the spell, and now it's completely obliterated. And that player is completely knocked out of the game. And the best part is, if you destroy a castle with the skull, that gives you enough points to all-out destroy another castle with a single spell. And in earlier rounds in the game, where 2 castles are allowed to survive per round, destroying 1 castle usually ends the round. The artistry of this game is fantastic. I've never seen anything quite like it before. One of my favorite features of that game is the timer down at the bottom of the screen. It's a bar that's slowly draining, and above the bar are the words, "Time until doom." In earlier rounds, you don't get to find out what happens when that timer runs out. There's a curiosity about it in the back of your mind. When the timer runs out, a dragon's head bursts out of the ground, and the game continues on in hyperspeed. The skull is traveling much faster than it was previously, and it's doing massive damage to everybody's castle. The knights move faster too, so it is possible to block the skull if it comes toward your castle, but it's moving so fast your mind just can't work quick enough to stop the skull from hitting your castle. It becomes absolute pandemonium until everyone's castle is left in rubble except one, and the last man standing wins the round. Not usually by his own efforts, but just because he got the luckiest. Another cool piece of artistry in that game is the high score screen. It's a dungeon-type background, and there's this scrawny little golem-looking guy who's just running his thumb up and down the blade of a giant knife while you're entering your initials. He's eyeing you in the most disconcerting way. Just running his thumb up and down the blade of the knife. It's eerie. And then when you're done entering your initials, his thumb falls off. It's awesome. So that's Lords of War. I plan to cover it much more in depth when I have a better setup, and I'm so excited to be able to play it again. It really stands out in my mind as one of my favorite Amiga games of all time. If you have any retro games you'd like me to review, especially lesser known retro games, write them in the comments below and I'll see if I can find them. I may already have them. Thank you all for watching, everybody, and I'd like you all to know that my cat can eat a whole watermelon. Thank you.